Hello everybody, and today I'll be doing a Gym Leader Challenge set review of the most recent set, Phantasmal Flames. So starting off with Gloom, it has the Drooling attack. For 1 grass it does 20 damage, and 20 damage to each benched Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. This can go nicely into the grass spread deck. It does damage your own Pokemon, but you can use the Vileplume with the Disgusting Pollen, and the Gloom can kind of just be the possible middle evolution that you evolve into to apply a bit more spread pressure on your opponent's side of the board. The Vileplume with the Disgusting Pollen can make it so as long as it's your active Pokemon, your opponent's basic Pokemon can't attack. And you can use the Hisuian Lilligant with the Twister Lutz attack to switch it to the bench and promote the Vileplume. So you do 20 more damage to your opponent's board and then go into the Vileplume and their basic Pokemon can't attack. Next up is a new Genesect. I think this has potential and might be one of the best cards out of the set. It's got 120 HP in the Bug Cannon attack. For 1 grass, you choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and it does 20 damage to that Pokemon for each grass energy attached to the Genesect. You can pair this with the Meganium from the last set with the Wild Growth, where each basic grass energy attached to a Pokemon provides 2 basic grass energy. So one attachment gets you 40 damage instead of 20, and then you can use something like Cherim to infinitely accelerate grass energy from your hand. So you can throw like 3 energy on the Genesect, have Meganium in play, and you're doing 120 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Next up is Low Kicks with the Jump Shot attack. For 3 colors, it does 150 damage, and you shuffle the Low Kicks and all attached cards back into your deck. You can get this out infinitely with Forest of Vitality. You just need a way to search out the Nimble and the Low Kicks. And then Triple Acceleration Energy and Ignition Energy both provide the 3 energy required for the attack cost. And then once you use the attack and you shuffle it back into the deck, you can promote the Shift Tree with the Shifty Substitution, where as long as it's in the active spot, each supporter card your opponent's plays has the effect of just draw 3 cards. So you can keep promoting the Shift Tree after doing 150 damage. Their supporters are offline, and then you keep reusing the Low Kicks to do 150 damage every turn and lock them out of supporters. Next up is Darmanitan with 150 HP and the Blazing Ball attack. For 4 colorless. It does 40 damage plus 40 more damage for each fire energy attached to it. This could be used with the Emboar with the Inferno Fandango and Charizard, which doubles the amount of fire energy on a Pokemon. I'm not sure how good this is going to be because it's a stage 1 that requires 4 energy to get going. It can be 2 with the Burn Brightly Charizard, but still, with just those energy, you're only doing 200 damage, which isn't ideal. The Darumaka does have a similar attack with the Blazing Ball. For 3 colors, it does 10 plus 20 for each fire energy attached to it. So there might be something there being able to attack with the Darumaka and the Darmanitan, so you don't necessarily need to have the Darmanitan online. I just don't think it's that great. Next is the new Reshiram with the Burning Flare attack. For 4 fire, it does 240 damage and 60 to itself. I think this does have potential because it one-shots Wailord and Okidogi while it has its ability active. You can pair this with Armarouge and Team Magma's Camerupt. Team Magma's Camerupt can accelerate a fire energy from the discard pile to it once during your turn, and then Armarouge can move the fire energy from your bench Pokemon to your active Pokemon. So you can accelerate with the Camerupt, move it to the active, and then Reshiram Burning Flare for 240. And then Charizard, again, Burn Brightly, you only need 2 energy to do 240. I don't think you're going to be consistently pulling this off, but if you need it as like a wall breaker to just blow up a Wailord or blow up an Okidogi, it's there, it's an option. Next is the new Ceruledge with the Purgatory Slash. For 1 fire, it does 220 damage, and you discard 4 fire energy from your hand, or the attack does nothing. This could be used because fire has a decent amount of recycling energy and getting energy in your hand. Fiery Flint, you have to discard 2 other cards from your hand to get 4 fire energy from your deck. Fire Crystal lets you put 3 basic fire energy from your discard pile into your hand. And the new Charcadet can even search your deck for up to 2 basic fire energy cards and put them into your hand. So there's plenty of ways to get the energy out of your deck into your hand and be using the Purgatory Slash for 220. I think this card's biggest flaw is that it's not doing 240 damage, so it's a muscle band short on KOing the Okidogi and the Wailord that I mentioned earlier. Next is a new Suicune with the Crystal Force. For a water and a water, it does 30 plus 90 if you have 3 or more water energy in play. This is not great. There's better Suicunes. You can use it with the Frostmoth to Ice Dance energy in play, get 4 energy in play, and start swinging. Or you can use the Aqua Patch as like a low-end attacker, but I think it's just a bad card. Now, the Piplup and the Prinplup that were introduced in this set are both decent. Piplup has a call for support where you search your deck for a support card and put it into your hand, and Prinplup for 3 colorless does 70 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. The best Empoleon, I believe, is this one right here with the recall attack. You choose an attack from one of this Pokemon's previous evolutions and use it as this attack. So the set that this came out in was Cosmic Eclipse, and in Cosmic Eclipse, there was a Piplup and a Prinplup that both had attacks that synergized very well with the Recall Empoleon. The Piplup has Bubble Hold for 3 water, it does 80 damage, and if the opponent's defending Pokemon is a basic Pokemon, it can attack during their next turn. And then the Prinplup does 100 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon at the cost of discarding an energy or all energy from the Pokemon. Both of those don't mean anything cost wise because it's just one colorless to use them with the Recall Empoleon. The Prinplup is just better than the other Prinplup. And then Call for Support, I could see Call for Support seeing play over the Piplup. The problem being that basic Pokemon are very prevalent, and being able to lock them out of attacking and force your opponent to have a switch card is probably more powerful than getting a supporter. Next up is a Palmont with the Voltage Fists. For 2 lightning, you do 130, and then you can do 60 to yourself. If you do, your opponent's active is now paralyzed. The problem with this is that it literally does too much damage. If you have an attack that's paralyzing your opponent, you want to be able to paralyze and trap them and force them to have a switch card. 130 is realistically KOing a good chunk of the GLC metagame. There was an Articuno and Silver Tempest that had basically the same attack, except it only did 70 damage, so it was significantly easier to bring something into the active spot, hit it for 70, paralyze it, and since it was only 70 damage, you weren't taking a KO, and your opponent had to find a way to move it. The card that possibly could work with this is Protection Cube, which prevents all damage done to the Pokemon this card is attached to by attacks it uses. So the Palmot's self damage is not is not a factor anymore. You damage yourself, Protection Cube blocks it, and then you just do the paralysis. Next up is Zacian for a Psychic and a Colorless that has Limit Break for 50 damage. If your opponent has 3 of your prize cards, it does 90 more damage. This is similar to a Mewtwo from Crown Zenith that has the same named attack, Limit Break, but it costs 2 Psychic and a Colorless, and it does 90 plus 90 more. Dimension Valley could make the Zacian playable, where you only need 1 energy to do 140 in the back half of the game, and then you can use it in a spread deck with something like Uxie, and the Uxie putting 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon will in turn buff the Zacian's Limit Break later down the line. So 2 Uxies gets you up to hitting 180, which is what the Mewtwo is hitting, and you're doing it on all your opponent's Pokemon that have been in play for both of the Painful Memories, and you're doing it for 1 to 2 energy with Dimension Valley in play. Next is Bramblegast. I think this card is bad, but it's funny, so I put it in here. The Panic Prison ability, where when you evolve it from your hand, you leave your opponent's active Pokemon confused. You can pair this with the Mental Crush Tapu Lele for a Psychic and 2 colorless. It does 90 damage, and if your opponent's active is confused, it does 90 more. But there is already a trainer card called Yellhorn, which confuses both actives, so you can just confuse a different active Pokemon, switch into Tapu Lele, and you've done the same thing that cost you both a bench spot and finding an evolution and evolving it. So I think it's just bad. But next is a new Flygon, the Flapping Sand ability, where when you evolve it from your hand or it gets knocked out, you discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. This is not the first mill card that fighting has got. There was a Wishcash with the Raging and Rocking attack. For 1 fighting, for each fighting attached to it, you discard the top card of your opponent's deck. So if you can get a bunch of fighting on the Wishcash, you can discard a whole bunch of cards. Flapping Sand would add to those cards that you can discard in a given turn. And then you can use Curse Shovel on the Flygon while you're attacking with it, so that when they knock it out, you discard the top 4 cards of their deck instead of just the top 2. And then there's a new Weavile with the Claws of Retribution. For 2 dark, it does 20 damage, and if the Weavile has 50 or less HP remaining, it does 170 more damage. So 190 for 2 is not bad at all. You can combo this with something like the new Toxtricity, which I'll explain more on a later slide, but it puts damage counters on the Weavile. Old Cemetery also puts damage on the Weavile, so you can use both of those to put 4 damage counters total. You can swing in for 190, and then if you manage to put 2 more damage counters, you activate Hustle Belt, and then you're doing 60 additional damage, so you're hitting 250, which is more than enough to KO Wailord and Okidogi, which are the two biggest HP thresholds that you want to be hitting. Next is the new Crocodile with the Revenge Fang attack. For 1 darkness, it does 60 damage, and if one of your Pokemon was knocked out by damage from an attack last turn, the attack does 160 more damage. So 220 for 1 energy is very solid. With Grimsley's move, you can just throw this Crocodile into play if it's in the top 7 cards of your deck. Grimsley's that you choose a dark Pokemon you find there and put it on your bench, and then the other cards go back to the bottom of your deck. Muscle Band puts this in range of a Wailord KO and a Okidogi KO. I think this could be solid as just a like blow up their active after they KO you. It will only be doing 60 damage after the Revenge Fang if they don't KO anything, but I think it still could be worth it for just 220 on a single energy. Just throw it into play with Grimsley's attacker. Back to the Toxtricity with the Bad Upper ability, where once during your turn you can search your deck for a basic Darkness energy and attach it to one of your benched Darkness Pokemon. If you do, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon, and then you shuffle your deck. This is very, very good for Darkness. It's a bit more energy acceleration on a stage 1. It places damage counters, which is huge for something like Spiritomb with the Building Spite. You put damage counters on it, and then Anguish Quiet does more damage for each damage counter already on it. So you can accelerate those damage counters with the Bad Upper. The Guzzlord can be easier to power up. You can bench it, Dark Patch to it to attach an energy, Bad Upper to attach an energy from the deck, and then counter energy, and you have a fully powered up Guzzlord in 1 turn. And added bonus, the Toxel, which is the only Dark Toxel that you can play because it's the only one that exists. But it has Call for Family for 2 Pokemon, which is absolutely amazing. I think this will just be a great line for Dark to work with. Next is new Archaludon with the Coded Attack. For 3 metal, it does 120 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon can't be damaged by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon. This is huge. A whole bunch of the GLC metagame has shifted towards big basic beatstick attackers, looping them, using them as many times as possible to just close out the game. This Archaludon with the Coded Attack can just be immune to all of them. If they have a problematic evolution Pokemon, you can Lost City it and prevent them from ever damaging the Archaludon. They'd have to have like Escape Rope to push it to the bench and then Boss's Orders to bring it up. And then they still have to hit 180 damage, which is an added bonus because 180 damage isn't the easiest damage threshold to hit. So if your opponent's just going all basics, you can just win with repeated coded attacks until the game's over. The other Archaludon has the Metal Bridge, where all your Pokemon that have Metal Energy attached have no retreat cost, and Iron Blaster for 2 Metal and a Colorless is 160, and it can attack next turn. I think this one will see play over it. You do lose the free retreat on all your guys, but that's only if they have Metal Energy attached, which means you have to commit more Metal Energy than you might want to. I think that Coded Attack is just better, especially into the current metagame. New Ambipom with Dual Tail. For 3 colors, you discard 2 energy from it, and it does 60 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. You can use both the triple energies that I mentioned earlier, and you can put this in a colorless spread list with Spinda and the other colorless spread guys. I really like Spinda because it puts 10 damage on all your opponent's Pokemon, and then you can go into the Ambipom, and then Dual Tail will be doing 60 to the Pokemon that already have 10 damage on them, so you can actually hit the relevant 70 HP basics that everyone's playing. So this could be a cool new addition to colorless spread. Into the trainers, there's Jumbo Ice Cream. You heal 80 damage from your active Pokemon that has 3 or more energy attached. I think this card is not great because we just have better healing cards in GLC. If this is going to see play in anything, I think it's going to be Water with one of the 2 Wailords. The Hydro Pump Wailord, I think less so, because you're not like gaining anything by healing the damage because they're probably just going to be 2-shotting you anyway. But with the other Wailord, with the jumbo-sized ability where it takes 30 less damage, if you can stack those damage reductions with jumbo-sized and like Pot Helmet, or you go with Luxurious Cape, you have a 300 HP Wailord that's taking 30 less. If they have to 2-shot you and you heal 80, they might have to 3-shot you just because that damage reduction, and you possibly take 90 less damage or 120 less damage just with how much you're like reducing it by. Next up is Heat Burner. You have to discard a basic fire energy from your hand in order to use it, and then you choose a Pokemon Tool Special Energy or Stadium card your opponent has in play, and you discard it. This is kind of like a Field Blower and Enhanced Hammer stapled together. It can only target your opponent's stuff, but it's still like solid in fire, because fire typically wants energy in the discard pile to reaccelerate. With Blacksmith or Mela or Raihan, it has plenty of ways to utilize fire energy while it's in the discard pile, and being able to put it there. Heat Burner can deal with Okidogi that has a special energy attached to it. You can get rid of that and then one shot it with a smaller attacker while not committing something like the Reshiram doing 60 damage to itself and 4 energy required. Next up is Wonder Patch, which we'll probably just see play in every Psychic deck. It's item-based energy acceleration. I'm most excited to play it in a Garbodor deck because you shut off your own abilities, and just having more ways to put energy in play, especially on an item, is absolutely amazing. Into supporters, I mentioned Grimsley's move earlier. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, you choose a Darkness Pokemon you find there and put it onto your bench, and then you shuffle the other cards and put them on the bottom of your deck. And you can't play it on your first turn. So this opens up a lot of doors for Dark specifically, because Dark has a lot of like weird evolution lines where they gain the Dark typing at like the second stage in their evolution line, so you can't play them ever. And you can use it with the Hisuian Samurott with the Wily Stance. Once during your turn, you can discard a card to draw 3. Or the Tyranitar with the Daunting Gaze, where as long as it's in the active, your opponent can't play items from their hand. You stack them on top of your deck with Max Revive or Academy at Night. Use Grimsleys to put them right into play, and you just cheated a stage 2 into play. It can either draw you cards or heavily disrupt your opponent. Next up is Dawn. It lets you search a deck for a basic, a stage 1, and a stage 2, put them in your hand. I think this is better than a Rizu solely because it can get you a basic to prevent yourself from getting donked. It also has very nice synergy with Forest of Vitality, where you can just get an entire grass stage 2 line from your deck and throw it onto your bench, which I think is really cool and funny. Next is Fire Breather. It lets you search a deck for up to 7 basic fire energy cards and put them in your hand. This is also funny. You can play with Embor, the Inferno Fandango, accelerate as many fire energies you like from your hand to one of your Pokemon. You can use it with the Hemor Exciting Flame for 3 fire energy. If it has 3 more fire energy attached to it, you do 90 damage to their active and 180 to one of their bench Pokemon. So you can get 7 fire energy, attach 6 of them to the Heatmore, and take 2 prizes possibly. Finally is Battle Coliseum. You prevent all damage counters from being placed on bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, by the effects of the attacks or abilities used by your opponent's Pokemon. It's kind of like Inverted Sky Pillar. It stops Dusknoir. There's a bunch of things that it stops, but I think it's going to fall into the same vein that Sky Pillar does, where if you really need to hate on a spread deck that bad, you can play it, but it's still just bad because they can bump it on their turn and it doesn't provide you any benefits. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll leave a couple links in the description below. The official Gym Leader Challenge website, it's a great place to go to start learning about the format. The Cardboard Warriors website has a whole bunch of deck lists that you can look at. I'll leave the website where I got the proxies from below for the video. Yeah, I'm back. It's been a while. There should be a decent amount of content for me to do with Phantasmal releasing. I will have tabletop video gameplay coming out at some point. Next week will be a video on the metagame report from the Full Grip Phantasmal Flames GLC release weekend tournament. And then the week after that should be tabletop. But I'll keep recording tabletop and see how you guys like it. Thanks. Subscribe. Have a good night.